So we are back again. I did that checking answer video earlier, and I realized, well, maybe some of you actually cannot solve equation. So should have done this first. But if you're in my other classes, let's say geometry or algebra 2, and you're watching any of this, and you'll be like questioning why I'm doing all of this for algebra 1, is because that is the building block for everything. It's just like math. You can't skip like equation. You can't skip 7th grade and trying to move on, and it's going to be a very difficult time for all of you. And so again, it's going to be another very basic video, and today we're going to talk about the solving equations. And solving equation is about moving things around. Is if we can move things around across the equal sign, that's actually the key of solving equation. And whenever you move, it's about the opposite of the operation. So that is one thing that I think I'm going to start right away, is about the opposite operation. What does it mean? So let's say somewhere in your equation, you have to move this plus 5, okay? Or you just simply have a 5 sitting there. When you move it, the opposite operation is subtract 5. All right, subtract 5. And if you have negative 5 anywhere, the opposite operation is plus 5. Now, I'll avoid using just the simplest example. Let's say I actually have a fraction. So I have a fraction sitting there. It's not going to be the best thing ever. 2/7. You treat that like one item. And on the next slide, I'm going to talk about what it means by per item. So this plus, without anything in front of it, is still a plus. Plus 2/7. The opposite to it is going to be subtract 2/7. All right. So the add or subtract, sometimes I think, some students may make that mistake. When you're moving that, you don't know what to do with that. It is confusing, it's fraction, don't know what to do, I give up. Don't give up, just treat that like an item, this whole thing as an item, as like a data block, something you're going to move across the equal sign. Then we went into the other problem. We are going to introduce that variable in there. Let's say I have 2 times x. Okay, a lot of people just read that as 2x, but in the real scenario, what we are thinking is 2 times x, 2 times x. Then it makes your life a little bit easier to think about the operation. 2 times, so that's the operation. The opposite to it is going to be divide. So opposite to multiplication is going to be divide. So for whatever reason, if you're going to move this 2, you are going to divide it by 2. All right, divided by 2. Or when you're solving the equation, mostly I'll just put, a fraction line and I put a 2 down there. Don't be confused. That is not a subtract. I've seen people doing subtract over there. It's scary. Don't do it. After the multiply, then of course I'm going to end up with x divided by 5. So x divided by 5, if we were to move that 5 at any stage of the equation, you are going to move this item. You are going to multiply by 5. It's on the other side of the equation. So that is the absolute basic of the 4 operation. If it's add, it's going to be subtract. If it's going to be subtract, it's going to be add. If it's sitting there on its own, it means it's add or subtract. Okay, so the multiply, it will show up in this form. 2x normally is the second last step. You ended up with this result is 2x is equal to 10. You have to somehow get the x on its own, right? So the last one, x divided by 5, you have to multiply both sides by 5. Okay, I know the x and the multiply is kind of annoying. This is multiply, that's my x. I'll try to keep that standard. So That's the basic, absolute basic of it. And then we're going to move into, you have to learn how to look at each item. Like if I give you an expression like this, all right, there are 5 items on this equation. How I look at it is each item contribute to your operation. So for example, why do I say there are 5? Hopefully you can see there are 5. So this is your first item. Okay, first item is a positive 5x. If I were to move this whole thing to the other side, I'm going to subtract 5x. So we are going to get into the next item. Next item is going to be a plus 30. If I were to move this to the other side, then it's going to be a negative 30. Then the third item is your subtract 15 or negative 15. When I move it, it's going to be plus 15. And I'm running out of color. 20, if I were to move it to the left-hand side, I have to subtract 20. And finally, let's just go back to the yellow. Is a negative 5x or subtract 5x. If I were to move it, it's going to be adding to the other side. So learn how to look at each item and pay attention how I actually group them. So I always group the sign in front of it, because this sign way over here is telling you whether it's going to be a positive or negative, whether you're going to subtract or add. It's really based on how you look at the item. So look at these things as like a block of data. Some of these may get a little bit more complicated. Maybe I won't do it in this video. That the block of data may be a little bit bigger than just a number itself. And when that happens, you just have to be really clear about which part of this equation you're dealing with. So remember that when you group them, try to learn how to group all of this together. You don't have a highlighter for it. You're just gonna do it in your head, okay? So moving right on. The next bit about equations is how can we group things together? As in, whether two things can add or subtract, multiply or divide, it always creates this confusion for students. So for example, I'm trying to group a couple of terms together. I'm just gonna write this equation, okay? Just simple numbers. Let's have 2x plus 6. Let's do a plus 6x minus 5. All right. When we are talking about grouping like terms, that means they have to be similar somehow. Otherwise, you cannot group them. So for example, again, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms together. I would say these two, okay, pay attention to how I group them. These two are like terms. The like terms means they both have the x. And so 2x plus 6x actually means something, okay? So if you're having problem with it, you actually think about, oh, I have 2 apples over here, 6 apples over there. It will add up to 8 apples. So that's what I mean by grouping like terms. And of course, if we are looking into this, obviously, the other part of like terms will be this 2. Then you have a positive 6 minus 5. When you read that, it's positive 6 minus 5. You're going to get yourself a very nice just 1. 1 is a positive 1. And therefore, grouping like terms is also a key. And if you're running into questions like you're going to move one item from one way to the other, where you place the item you're about to move is really crucial. So let's say we're looking into the very next example right over here. We are going to have like 5x and plus, let's just keep all of this divisible by 5, shall we? Let's do a 20 over here. Let's do a subtract 5x over there. So as an example like this, being able to move those terms, by now, if you've watched the other video, you know that we are going to get to x is equal to something, and then we are going to call it good. So now we have to decide on what item we are going to move. So just follow on whatever I did earlier. I'm going to group the like terms in the same color. They are like terms because both of them, they have x. And of course, the 10 and 20, they are just both simple, boring numbers. So they are the like terms. So when I look at it, I don't see all these colors, but in my mind, at least I know, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I want to achieve this. I want to somehow get to x is equal to something. So I know that all of my x's, like I have one over here, I have one over there, they have to go together. At least that's what I want. I want all the x to move to the left-hand side, while all of my all of my other numbers are going to go there. All right. And of course, that also introduces a problem like after moving that 5, of course, I'm going to have another 10. When we get there, I'll talk about it. So I normally would do the x first. I'm going to add both sides by 5x. Because opposite of subtract is going to be adding. And whatever I do to one side of the equation, I'm going to do to the other side. I'm a very fair person. Whatever I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other side of the equation. So 5x plus 5x, grouping like terms. 5 plus 5 is going to be 10. So I'm very happy with this, 10x. I would suggest in the beginning, I'm not going to skip any step. I'm just going to copy whatever I didn't do. Copy that 20. This one cross it because 5 minus 5 or minus 5 plus 5, that will cancel out. I need some more space. All right. So if we are okay up to this point, I can kind of see how my like terms are now. So the x with this color, I have 10x. I have nobody to go with it. I'm done with it. So basically the other two terms I have to deal with is that 2, right? So let's subtract that because I know by now looking at this is a plus. So I have to subtract 10. Subtract 10 is across the equation, the equal sign. So that will cancel out. So copy this, 10x is equal to 10. All right. So like I said earlier, when you get to like pretty much the second last step, that's when you ended up with this 10x. This 10x. So I'm still not at my x is equal to something. I gotta get this 10 to the other side. So this is actually kind of the trick. A lot of people don't remember that. So look over here, read this statement 10 times. 10 times. Okay, that's not a very nice times. 10 times x. So you think about, well, what's the opposite of times? Opposite of times has to be divide. Divide. So what are we dividing? 10 times, of course I'm dividing by the number itself is 10, 10, and 10 divided by 10 is 1. So we left with just 1x. Okay, we can be lazy now, 1x, we don't need that, 1. So 10 divided by 10 is just 1. All right, and we can check this answer. We can just go back and double check and say, oh, my x is equal to 1. Let's double check if my left-hand side is equal to my right-hand side. So left-hand side, x is equal to 1. So I have 5 times 1 plus 10. Agree? So 5 plus 10, 15. So I want to check if my right-hand side is going to agree with my result. So my right-hand side is actually 20 minus 5 times 1, which is 20 minus 5, which is 15. So my answer is correct. So this is actually a really basic video. I don't want to dive into too much. So wait for the next one. We should cover something a little bit more difficult. All right. So bye for now.